Well, and welcome on in to another edition of the Campaign Catch-Up. I'm your host, John Stolnis, and joining me to talk about the latest with the Trump transition and many other big topics in D.C. we choose to care about, David Brody, CBN News chief political analyst. We're going to be breaking down the latest with Pete Hegseth, Tulsi Gabbard, Kash Patel, lots of other stuff going on here as the Trump team gets ready for the next iteration of a Trump presidency. David, welcome back to the Campaign Catch-Up. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing well, John. Good to see you, sir.
It's good to see you too. And I want to start off with, we'll do some temperature checks here, I think, to start off the show. And the first one I want to start off with is Pete Hegseth. We talked about him a lot last week on this show because at the time when we did this last little chinwag, it seemed as though Pete Hegseth's path to becoming the new defense secretary was maybe a little bit more in doubt. And I want to get your thoughts now, a week later, after he's had more meetings up on Capitol Hill with different Republican senators, and the fact that he met with his first Democratic senator on Thursday, Pennsylvania's John Fetterman. How you think things are looking right now for Pete Hegseth as he goes through this process?
Definitely better. I mean, before it was tenuous. It's taken probably a couple of notches up to better. Not anything near solid at this point, but it's definitely better. Why exactly? Well, Donald Trump came out and endorsed him, gave him the vote of confidence. We never saw that with Matt Gaetz, obviously, when Gaetz was on the ropes. So that's a big deal, obviously. But beyond all of that, I think what's working in Hegseth's favor here are two things. One, he's taking it all head on. I mean, he's doing all of these interviews with Megyn Kelly and others, and just basically saying it's bogus, and he's going through a lot of these allegations. And the second part of this is that when it comes to the allegations, there's the A word, anonymous. We don't have anybody really coming out and kind of getting behind it fully at this point. And so I think he's used that in a way to his advantage to say, look, these are anonymous people. This isn't anything, if it was a big deal, someone would come out and really, go after me with their name and X, Y, and Z. So unless that happens, I think things will stay status quo. And then he'll have to answer some tough questions about, his qualifications for the job. But it clearly does have some qualifications, maybe not running a department. That's different. So, I think overall it's on a trajectory plus side at this point from a temperature check, John.
What did you make of his conversation with Democratic Senator Fetterman yesterday? Mm-hmm. Obviously, we don't know the details of what they talked about, but it sounds as though from some of the interviews Fetterman has given, I saw he did one with CNN on Thursday before the meeting, and afterwards he was very non-committal about anything, but the vibe that we're getting from Senator Fetterman from his statements is that he's keeping an open mind, which I'm not sure that you could say that about many of the other Democratic senators, if any, who will be sitting down to talk with Pete Hegseth. And I don't know that there are any more meetings scheduled with Democratic senators in the next week or so.
Well, Fetterman has always been a wild card for Democrats. He's been outspoken very much against the anti-Semitic wing of his party. And so on Hegseth, I think that we don't know exactly where he'll come down, but I think there's at least what does it Jim Carrey say? He says, well, you're telling me there's a chance. You're telling me there's a chance. He's like, it's like that. And I think that's where we are with Fetterman. Fetterman, as you know, John, a Pennsylvania guy, he's very blue collar, very Pennsylvania. And when I say blue collar, I mean blue collar. He's not. Yeah,
he doesn't wear collars.
He doesn't wear collars, what I'm trying to say. He wears a blue collar, so to speak, or actually wears a hoodie, now that I think about it. So I think that helps Hegseth, because Hegseth's more of your non-traditional candidate. And I think Fetterman's attracted to the non-traditional types, if you will. And I think that's a good thing for Hegseth. Also, let me just say one last thing. The other thing that we didn't have last week when we talked was the Joni Ernst part of this, which I'm not going to call it a full throttle recommendation at all, but she's basically giving those signs that, she could very well get on board with Hegseth. And honestly, it's the Joni Ernst litmus test is what we're really looking for here with her, not just as a woman, but she's a victim of sexual assault. But not only that, but a big time military experience, for decades. So you put all that together, I think she's the key litmus test in all of this.
So if he passes the Joni Ernst litmus test, who are the other Republican senators who could potentially throw a monkey wrench into things for him?
Lisa Murkowski, obviously, Susan Collins, potentially, Mitch McConnell as well. Those three. I think you got to look at those. There might be a few others, but I think those are the three that I would keep my eye on.
Roger that. So let's talk about another one of Trump's potential nominees and his pick for National Defense. Where I'm messing up the
DNI, defense.
DNI, right? National Defense. Yeah, it's Tulsi Gabbard,
Director of National Intelligence. There we go.
Thank you. I had a brain worm there for whatever reason. He
like RFK. RFK's got a brain worm.
Right, got the brain worms. I'm sensing a theme here, David, and my brain worm is telling me that with Tulsi Gabbard, she's not getting quite as much attention as Pete Hegseth has gotten. But she began her meetings on Capitol Hill this week with Republican senators, and I know that there's been, I guess maybe some in the faith community questioning whether questioning her faith and whether how that factors into her potential nomination. Can you give us a little background on that? What's going on there?
Yeah, the Associated Press and Reuters have done some articles about her faith and kind of like she belongs to this Hindu cult and everything. And look, I've met with Tulsi Gabbard. I interviewed her, spent some time with her, and she's very outspoken about the fact that she's a practicing Hindu. And but I'm still trying to kind of connect the dots there as to what that has to do at all with being the director of national intelligence. Someone's going to have to explain that to me. I still haven't gotten the connection. And so it seems to be some hit jobs from the Associated Press and Reuters to kind of basically say that, in essence, her faith is weird, though they'll never say that, but to do the story and make it sound like it's a little weird, and maybe it is. I mean, I'm not going to say it is or it isn't. I'm just going to say, like, that's what they're reporting. You put that together with some of her untraditional views on certain foreign policy issues and intelligence issues, and I think you've got kind of the legacy media in their role now of kind of painting Tulsi Gabbard as not just an outsider, because if it was a liberal, it would be an outsider fighting for the little people. But in this case, it's more kind of like, hey, wait a minute, she's off the reservation. And quite frankly, the Associated Press and Reuters may be channeling a little bit of what some Republican senators are thinking. There's no doubt she's off the reservation as it relates to Republican GOP orthodoxy on stuff. I mean, but she met with Bashar al-Assad. That doesn't mean she supports him, but had a meeting with him. But then again, so did Nancy Pelosi. So let's remember that. But beyond all of that, I mean, she has praised Edward Snowden in the past, and she's not necessarily criticized Vladimir Putin. It's been more like, and it's not been a love fest, but more kind of like understanding him a little bit more. And that hasn't gone over well with Republican senators. So you put all of that together, and I think she actually has the harder road than Pete Hegseth at this point, because it's actual doctrine we're talking about, policy we're talking about. And this is just everything that the people like Mitch McConnell and Murkowski and Collins and others, by the way, not just those three, but others are really against at their core, as it relates to even meeting with Bashar al-Assad or calling Edward Snowden this hero. I mean, they don't believe that at all. So I think it's a harder pill for them to swallow with Tulsi Gabbard. Do I think she gets confirmed? I don't know. I mean, I think that's a tough one still. I think the jury's still out on that. I think that's the harder one. John.
Yeah, and I know some of the resistance coming from some Republican circles, but a lot of Democratic circles is, as the director of national intelligence, you're going to be privy to some of the country's deepest secrets, right? And you're going to be charged with making sure that those things are held close vest. That you are looking out for your American interests first and foremost. And the concern is that she has, like you said, seemed. I know different members who worked on different people who have, worked with her say she gets a lot of her intelligence from, or she used to get a lot of her information from sites like Russia Today, which I think a lot of people it was an English language, but kind of Russian centric news organization. And concerns about that, concerns about going to see Assad when he was in power at a time when United States policy was to try and isolate him. And the concern there is that, can she be trusted as the number one, as like the person who's in charge of holding the nation's secrets most secret? And I wonder what she has to say. And I wonder what the fall of the Assad regime in Syria, how that's factoring into a lot of the conversations that she's having here over the last couple of days.
Well, I think, look, I think her default is two things. One, she's a free thinker. She's thinking outside the box, and she has to go with that. You have to be who you are. And so in these meetings, you're really going to hear a lot about, look, we've done things a certain way. I think it's time to kind of look at situations, foreign policy wise, intelligence wise, with a fresh set of eyes. I mean, I think that's what Kash Patel's argument is going to be as well
Mm.
for FBI director. And I think she's going to talk about the mandate. The mandate for change that the American people want. And excuse me, I think that she will say to the senators that she is a part of that Donald Trump trusts her to be someone different that's going to do, it's not going to be business as usual. And that, look, you can reject my nomination, but do you want to reject what the American people are saying in terms of a mandate for change? Because I believe that Tulsi Gabbard is kind of wrapped into this mandate for change. I mean, I think Tulsi Gabbard and Kash Patel are two kind of poster man and woman, if you will, of what Trump is trying to do here, which is they are both totally outside the box. They're people that are just totally thinking differently. They're critical thinkers. They're intellectually curious. And they're just not going to be trapped into a box, and that's exactly what Trump wants. So I think that's the way she's going to play it. As for RT, Russian Today, I mean, it's owned by Moscow. I mean, it's owned by the government, Russia, or it was for a while. Maybe it still is. I don't know. But so that's obviously an issue. But look, I think that's how she's going to go about this. And by the way, Joe, let me just be clear. Her ultimate goal, I mean, talking to her, getting kind of to get to know her, and we know this already about her, but her number one prism is peace. She's call it a peacenik, whatever you want to call it. She does not want war. She's trying to, but she's a patriot. I mean, she served this country in the military, and so it's not that she doesn't love this country. She loves it dearly, and that's why she wants peace. She believes that you get prosperity in a country, in America here, through peace.
You mentioned Kash Patel just a second ago. Trump's pick to head the FBI. We this week, Christopher Wray, the current director of the FBI, stepped down. He still had another 3 years left on his 10-year term, but decided to step down rather than be likely fired by President-elect Trump once Trump takes office in January. And so now that seems to clear the path and make it all but certain that Patel will at least go through this process now with the idea that he would take over the bureau at the start of the next Trump administration. As far as Patel goes, you mentioned that they're kind of like he and Gabbard are both kind of from the same cloth in terms of they want to shake things up. They want to do things differently. They have this mandate from the American people. It sounds as though what we're hearing from Republican senators is that he's a lot more likely to get the nomination and the confirmation. There seems to be less resistance, especially among Republicans, at least from what we've heard publicly, to him taking on this role. And we know some of the things that he has said he wants to do is really focus on going after people inside government and outside of government, including some in the media who were involved in what they believe is lawfare, using the Justice Department to go after Donald Trump and his allies. So what's your take on where things stand on Kash Patel right now?
Well, I don't think you're ever going to hear him say, yeah, I want to go after, right? You said the words go after. That feels like a media talking point, a little bit of the language. He's not going to ever say that. What he'll say is, look, when we need to hold people accountable, we'll hold them accountable. And so, I know the media loves to use the word retribution, but he won't say that word. He'll just say, look, accountability is accountability. So I think you're gonna hear that. Look, I got to tell you, the fact that Christopher Wray is going to resign, that pretty much clears the way for Kash Patel. I mean, that's kind of a huge deal there. It's fascinating to me that he's having a bit of a or less of a bumpy ride than the other two. And the reason I say that is because he wrote a book, John, called Government Gangsters. Government Gangsters. And it was all about the deep state. And John, I mean, if you read this book, I mean, what he says about some folks in government is like, oh, we got to we got to do this, we got to do that, we got to go after this, got to go after that. So I think he'll temper that with the senators and say, yeah, I said it and I wrote it and I meant it. But just to be clear, I'm only going where the facts are going to lead us. And if they lead us this way, then we're going to do it. If they don't, they don't. But I'll be privy to the information as FBI director, and I'll have a better sense of what might be doable and what's not. And so I think that's the way he's going to go. And I do see him getting confirmed, especially now that Christopher Wray is going to be gonzo, so to speak.
Last person I want to ask you about, and that's RFK Jr. It's been kind of quiet surrounding RFK Jr. here the last couple of weeks, as a lot of the attention is focusing on Hegseth and Gabbard and Patel. What is your sense on RFK Jr.'s glide path to being the HHS secretary?
I don't think it's going to be a glide path for sure. And the reason we haven't heard too much about it is because he really hasn't started to make the rounds yet on Capitol Hill. He'll do that starting next week. I mean, HHS is a big deal. Listen, there are going to be a lot of folks, especially in the pro-life community, they're going to raise a stink over some of the things he said in the past about abortion. They're concerned quite a bit about some of the social issues, if you will, as it relates to how HHS goes about enforcing or at least creating mandates and orders and rules and regulations. So I think you're going to see some of that pushback. But by and large, look, this Make America Healthy Again, Maha has really taken off across the country. This does feel like a situation where he's going to get confirmed. I mean, after all, it is RFK Jr. He's got the name recognition for sure. And I also think that, there's a lot of concerned parents across the country that do have concerns, not just about the food we're giving our kids, but some of these vaccines. And to be clear, he's always been very clear. He's not an anti-vaxxer. I mean, this idea that he's like against vaccines is not true. I mean, he's been very clear. He said he's actually for some vaccines, but these are vaccines that have been proven over time to be successful. But when it comes to some others, he's got some real questions. And once again, back to the free thinker mentality, Trump is bringing in all of these intellectually curious people who say, you know what, let's take a look at this. And that scares people. That, if they're going to look at some of the potential, please understand I said the word potential, links between vaccines and autism, what's the harm in looking at that? Now, we always hear the line from the legacy media of the world. Well, scientists say, well, hold on, we're not in a day and age right now where you can get away with scientists say. We're just not. And so because of that, whether you, me, or anybody else likes it or not, that's the world we live in. So RFK, I think, will get confirmed based on the fact there's a lot more skepticism in the American public today than there was just even a decade ago.
Yeah, and I think, as long as RFK Jr. doesn't go into these things, if it truly is a matter of intellectual curiosity, then you go into it without a predetermined thing in your mind of saying, I believe this is what's happening, so let me investigate. If it's a pure intellectual curiosity, then I think there's nothing to be afraid of then, because you go where the facts lead you. And so, I mean, I don't know. I think that's if we're going to go down that road, then great. Let's go down that road. I just want to make, yeah, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, no, I agree. But I think, I know vaccines are going to get a lot of the attention, and well, they should, quite frankly, especially after COVID. But to be clear, I mean, he's really going to shake up the FDA. I mean, he's really going to shake up, kind of like the pharmaceuticals and the food pyramid folks, and just like that, the intersection between those two. Because, like, for example, I mean, here's just a basic question for someone in the middle of America that just wants to know, which is this: why are we giving our kids Fruit Loops with 19 ingredients? Like what in Europe, seriously, like in London and a couple other places around the world, they have Fruit Loops, whatever their version of Fruit Loops is, that has 2 ingredients. The fruit and the loop. No, I don't know. But the point is it has, it's got 2 ingredients. And why we have 19 ingredients in Fruit Loops, and what are we doing to our kids? And, look, this is not radical stuff. I mean, Mike Huckabee talked about this a long time ago in 2008 when he ran for president. He talked about the obesity issue in our country, and the fact that we allow the food industry is making money off of fat people. That's just the truth. Sorry, I said the word fat. I can say the word fat, obese, call whatever you want to say. But they're making money off of people by putting all of this stuff. I had a better word for it, but I'll just use stuff into the products. And then you got the pharmaceutical companies that are making money off of people being addicted to, or not addicted to, but having to rely on prescription meds because they're overweight. And so how about what Mike Huckabee said is, how about on the front end, we work to eliminate obesity on the front end? In other words, get people healthy again. So he was Maha before Maha was Maha. And I think that's something to just remember here.
Well, we are getting some interesting conversations happening up on Capitol Hill with these different potential nominees. Again, nobody's an official nominee until Trump comes into office. But certainly things change from week to week. We're having a much different conversation about a couple of these folks last week. So we'll see things, how things go in the week leading up to the Christmas break here as we are approaching Christmas time. But again, we're at the halfway point between the election and inauguration right now. So this is a nice temperature check to see where things stand with these different folks. David Brody, your expert analysis, always appreciated. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, John. Appreciate it.